Prescriptions misuse. You can make a report of the suspected misuse of a veterinary prescription to the Veterinary Medicines Directorate. There are two categories of misuse of a prescription: the alteration of an existing prescription and prescription fraud. Examples of alterations include changing the date that the prescription was signed, changing the quantity of the product, inclusion of additional medicines, and altering the number of repeats. Examples of fraud include supplying the same prescription to multiple retailers for supply, or forging the signature of the vet, pharmacist, or SQP. The VMD considers each reported case of misuse. Generally, for altered prescriptions for non-food producing animals, a warning letter will be sent to the offender for a first-time offence. For fraud, altered prescriptions for food producing animals, or repeat offenders of altered prescriptions, a case will be sent to Directorate Investigation Services with a view to prosecution. Emailing prescriptions. A client can request prescriptions to be emailed to them directly. Anyone supplying a veterinary medicine against a written prescription must take reasonable steps to ensure the prescription is genuine. Anyone who alters a written prescription without the authorization to do so by the prescriber is committing an offence. If an amendment, such as a typographical error, to a written prescription is necessary before the product can be supplied, then the prescriber may give the supplier permission to make an amendment on their behalf. This action should always be recorded. If orders against a faxed or electronic prescription are accepted, the supplier may need to check that each prescription is genuine. Prescribers may choose methods such as stickers or serial numbers in order to help with this. If a supplier doubts the validity of a prescription, then they should telephone the prescriber in order to check on this. Suppliers are also able to send an email directly to an online pharmacy. Unless the use of electronic transmissions for prescription is an agreed and familiar practice between the prescriber and the supplier, or it is needed urgently to avoid an animal suffering, the supplier should make sure that they have the original hard copy prescription before supplying the medicine. It would be difficult to stop multiple presentations of the same prescription to different retailers simultaneously, unless the prescribing vet asks where the client wishes to obtain the medicine and they email the prescription direct to the retailer. No particular format is required for a written veterinary prescription, and each practice can choose what suits them best. Certain information, however, must be included. Further guidance can be found on the gov.uk link below. Written prescriptions for controlled drugs. For all controlled drugs, it's considered good practice for only 28 days worth of treatment to be prescribed, unless in situations of long-term ongoing medication. An example here is the treatment of epilepsy in dogs. If more than 28 days worth of treatment is prescribed, the veterinary surgeon must assure the competence of the owner regarding the safe use of the product. Non-UK prescriptions. To be able to legally supply against a prescription in the UK, it must have a valid UK prescription. In order to be a UK valid prescription, it must be signed by a practising RCVS registered vet. If a prescription is not valid, a vet can still choose to follow it as an order to export outside of the UK, subject to the usual rules. You can directly export a medicine in accordance with Regulation 31 of the Veterinary Medicines Regulation. Prescriptions for more than one animal or medicine. It is acceptable to have multiple animals or medicines on a single prescription. However, when multiple medicines are noted on the prescription, it must be explicit which medicines are for which animals. It's the responsibility of the prescribing vet to provide clear instructions to ensure the correct medicines and dosage are given to the right animal. Schedule 3, Paragraph 6 of the Veterinary Medicines Regulation set out the requirements for a written prescription. In particular, subparagraph D, the identification, including species, of the animal or group of animals to be treated. Prescribing prescription-only veterinary medications. Prescription-only medicines may only be supplied if they have been prescribed by a vet following a clinical assessment of the animal, which must be under their care. The Veterinary Medicines Regulation doesn't define clinical assessment or under their care, and vets should use their own professional judgment to interpret what this means in individual cases. However, the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons has interpreted both phrases. A client may ask for a written prescription if they want to buy the product from a supplier other than the prescribing vet. The prescribing vet must maintain the clinical responsibility for the treatment of the animals under their care. A vet or pharmacist may supply prescription-only veterinary products or products for use under the cascade to non-clients, but only against a valid written prescription from a vet registered with the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons. Further guidance can be found on gov.uk.
The VMD welcomes any questions that you might have. To ask your questions, please go to www.slido.com and use the event code 96607. Slido will be open for your questions until Friday the 20th of November. Responses will be published to your questions by Friday the 27th of November. If this presentation hasn't met your accessibility needs, please email director.support@vmd.gov.uk. Thank you.